Time now for our chart of the day. Joining us for that is Rachel Dashiell, contributor, Schwab Network. All right, Rachel, let's talk about this chart for Meta, and we'll talk about the trends, especially, I guess, recent trends that you're seeing on the chart. Can you take us through some of that?
Yeah, of course, Diane. Thank you for having me on today. This is going to be a fun one to actually look at today. So I know that just looking at the short term with Meta, we've seen over the past year just it making higher highs and higher lows all year. So we've seen that this has been a clear uptrend, definition of an uptrend. And even just looking at just the last couple days of trading action, especially on Monday, we saw a bullish large engulfing candlestick where we saw the body of that candle, or the distance between the high or the open and the close, completely engulf the price action of the two previous days of the body of those candles as well. So typically we see that type of movement or that type of power, those engulfing candlesticks at market bottoms, which is interesting because we're actually right now at making all-time highs. So in the short term, we're seeing that there's a lot of demand. There's been a bullish push there. But I would say in the short term, the support levels that I'm looking at are definitely between that range of 652 to 659.
And it's interesting to see that, especially that note you mentioned about the patterns that you saw Monday and how it performed, especially when you compared it to not so much broader market action, but in terms of peers in the tech sector. But for Meta, what about when you widen out? You talked about the short-term picture, but what about when you widen out and get a longer-term view on the chart?
Great question. So that's one of my favorite things to do, is actually just zoom out and look at trend on various time frames, because I think a lot of traders know at this point the strongest trends and the best risk to reward setups have an alignment across those time frames. So when you're looking at your process, it's very helpful to just look at this trend on various time frames. So here I see an alignment across various time frames, looking at that 1 year, 1 day, compared to now looking at the 5-year weekly. And I just wanted to call out a couple points too. So I changed this scale of the chart to a logarithmic scale rather than an arithmetic scale. And the main difference between that is just the log scale is better for those time frames that are a year or longer, just because it represents that data on those percentage changes rather than just absolute values. So that's why, Diane, you'll notice that the scale on the right-hand side of the chart looks a little bit different than an even price scale. But another thing that I wanted to mention too, when looking at that longer term trend, was I marked out that Fibonacci retracement drawing.
Okay.
And that's typically a tool that a lot of traders will use to identify those price levels in the market where the market may pause or reverse before continuing that trend. So I drew those levels from the 2021, late 2021 prior cycle highs to the bear market lows of 2022, which really shows the depth of that basing pattern that we saw, which is about $300. So just kind of projecting those Fibonacci's into the future, it looks like we're right below that longer term resistance, right around, I would say, 688 or so. So that's where in the shorter term, we may find a little bit of resistance where traders could be taking a little bit of profits.
All right. That's a broader chart that we're looking at for Meta right now, and the setup for earnings. It reports after the bell today. Rachel Dashiell, thank you so much for taking us through the charts on both the short term and longer term